Good day, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Philly Old Head Review. I'm representing Team Audi today. This is not an endorsement, but I am representing Team Audi. Today we're going to talk about this creature called the teenager. But we've all been there, but I think it's a little different today. And our parents probably said the same thing with us. And also with Ms. Moore, our returning guest today, I don't think it's just the teenagers per se that age. I think it's kind of from 12 to 25. So that's what we're going to talk about today: the mindset, how we deal with them. So without further ado, Ms. Dacia Moore.
Thank you. I'm so pleased to be part of this program. My name is Dacia Moore. I'm a licensed professional counselor. I have certainly the educational experience to talk about human growth and development and what typically has been studied and discovered about teenagers in terms of where they are psychologically, cognitively, physically. But then we have some environmental factors that are part of this generation that it's never happened before. We've got, certainly we've always had an issue with social justice and racism against people of color, primarily African Americans. That's something that all of us have had to deal with. Mm-hmm. But this generation of teenagers also has the experience of the pandemic, and that we have never lived through before. And there are going to be some emotional consequences to that. There is going to be some acting out in just about everybody, but in teenagers specifically, that's what we're going to talk about today. And so the intersection of the normal teenage angst with the pandemic, with the social justice issues, and with the social media. So all of that layered on top of each other makes this generation of teenagers unique, and parenting them probably a little bit more difficult in many, many ways. So I raised two teenagers myself. I have two young adult daughters. They're in their 30s now. So they came up right when the internet was beginning to blossom. But for parents who have teenagers right now, it is much more complex. So we can talk about those complexities and help parents with concrete things and tips and strategies they can use with this challenge, the roller coaster ride of parenting a teen.
Well, let's talk about cognitive development and the factors that enter into that. What, cognitively, a lot of the young adults or young folks, teens, they seem to be very underdeveloped today. Can you touch a bit on that?
Sure. Well, let's just talk about normal cognitive development. Our brains begin developing once we're conceived, and our brains continue to grow. Actually, it's been discovered that our brains are what's called plastic, that they can rejuvenate themselves, and we can rejuvenate those neurons. But typically, our brain develops to its fullness by age 25. So teenagers are right in that middle stage, and from just from a standpoint of understanding the world, there are the way that teenagers think generally is very black and white. Okay, so they have grown up through grade school, through middle school, but teenage years, the sense of justice really becomes prominent, and things are either right or they're wrong. So teenagers don't really have the capacity yet, and they grow into it, but the capacity to think about the grayness of things. There is no all good or all bad entity unless you're, talking about a faith discussion. So all of us have good and bad. We all make good decisions. We make bad decisions.
Right.
But teenagers often physically look adult-ish. They speak and they can they like to debate, so they like to have conversations. They want to assert their identity, so they want to share their point of view.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes what they're trying to do is distinguish themselves from their parents. And so there's often battles
Right.
with parents because they see themselves as adult-like, but they are not. They are not. And that's one thing that I want to communicate to parents is though they may look grown, they may act grown, and they may present themselves to you as they are grown, but they are not grown. They don't have the life experience that you have, which is why it's still important to parent your teens and keep them from themselves.
Right.
Keep them safe from themselves because they think they know how the world works. Just because they're a little bit older, they have a little bit more autonomy. They're thinking for themselves. And many teenagers are responsible in different areas, doing their own homework, doing their chores, maybe holding down a little bit of a job.
Mm-hmm.
But that still does not mean that they don't need structure. They may
Right.
need a little bit of wiggle room, but they still need to be parented because they think they know more than what they do.
So let's talk about the role of the educational system in stunting the cognitive growth of young people. And what I mean by that is the educational system does not encourage critical thinking. It doesn't encourage thinking outside the box. Basically, it wants people just to be servants, for the lack of better terms, follow the orders, this, that, and the other. Can you touch on that a bit?
Well, when I was working in the educational system, it certainly is easier to manage a large group of students by making everybody comply.
Mm-hmm.
By encouraging, we have the factory model in the education system where, the bell rings and everybody goes to this next class.
Mm-hmm.
I think that, Omar, to be honest with you, I think that's changing because of the pandemic. And the educational system has had to adjust to shelter at place, homeschooling. And so I think what you're going to see upon the return to school and the pandemic further behind us is a more differentiated type of instruction. At least that's what I hope.
Mm-hmm.
So I understand your point, and I think that's certainly what is relevant pre-pandemic because it was easier to put everybody in a mold. If you're thinking outside the box, that means I have to do extra work. And I've got 35 kids in my class. Everybody just needs to be on the same thing. But I think that's going to change. I think that's going to change.
We're dealing with off camera. Before we started, I talked about how the Philadelphia area is dealing with a serious uptick in the murder rate, especially amongst the young people, 16-year-olds, 12-year-olds, 13-year-olds, in that age group, 12 to 25, being murdered every single day. And it possibly the pandemic has played a role in that. It has been easier for people to walk around with masks, with their faces covered and so forth and so on to be obscure. However, we're dealing with, especially amongst the males, because females are involved as well, but we're dealing with males who are very emotional, more emotional than I've ever seen. In my 50 plus years, we're dealing with a very emotional creature. Now, that being said, I understand that a lot of people are raised in, single parent homes with women at the head of them. But a lot of these males come from homes with fathers as well. Perhaps their fathers that they exude some of those behaviors. I don't know, but we're definitely dealing with a creature that is more emotional. You know, they have to just react. They, you know, get so irate. Have you, and you know, in your studies or, you know, dealing with the population, have you seen anything like that where you are?
I'm in the Midwest, Kansas City, Missouri,
Mm-hmm.
and we certainly have a high number of violent crime in the urban core. Generally, it's black on black crime.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's drug related. If you think about the history, and we can't just isolate things in 2021. We've got to look at the whole panoramic view.
Right.
Kansas City has always been a hotbed for the mafia. And
Mm-hmm.
so, the mafia uses the pawns
Mm-hmm.
to distribute the drugs and to claim, and because they're expendable. Be that as it may, yes, to answer your question, there's quite a bit of crime here.
Right.
I think that the reactivity that you're talking about, the emotionality that you're talking about among our African American men have a lot there. I think it's a complex issue, and I think a lot goes into it. I think part of it is the pandemic and people being cooped up, not being able to have the releases of going to school, just the activity of getting out of the house, getting to school, being with your boys, your girls, your tribe, and getting outside. There is value to that. And so a lot of people have been isolated, and not everybody does well in isolation. In isolation, you have the opportunity to think about what you don't have, and you're still connected with this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so you look at what other people do have, and that could make you really angry if you're in a mindset of, I'm coming from behind. I already didn't have much, and now I've had more taken away. What the hell? You know, I'm just gonna, and then, fly off the handle. I'm not saying that that's okay, but I think that is part of what we're looking at when we see all of this increase in violence. And I was looking at a show last night about the hidden pandemic. It was on PBS, and the hidden pandemic refers to the mental health crisis that we are going to experience in America after, not right now, but probably in about 6 months. And what we might be seeing, Omar, is the beginning of that mental health crisis coming out in behavior. That's how we know it's a crisis, because people are behaving in very aggressive, violent ways, and that acting out is a indicator of a mental health issue.
Do we have any ideas how to de-escalate that? I mean, especially when you are dealing with strangers. It could be on public transportation, could be in the store, just road rage, all of that. I mean, nobody likes to coddle or bow down, so to speak, to somebody else. We all have our moments, but understanding the climate and where we are, how do we kind of de-escalate these situations?
I think we each have to manage ourselves, because all of us have been traumatized to a certain degree by this pandemic, some more than others. And the more protective factors you have, i.e., healthy family, friendships, money, you're in good health. But if you have any of those that are missing, if you have risk factors, which could be poverty, lack of education, lack of nutrition, lack of supportive, healthy friendships, lack of supportive, healthy family. If you have more risk factors, then you are at more risk of acting out and being affected in a negative way. So, I don't have the answer. I think that's why we're going to be talking, you're going to be seeing more discussion about mental health, because everybody's grappling with what do we do and how do we help each other come to terms with whatever is in our head that is making us disturbed. But each of us have to be, I think, just just turn it down, turn each of our dials down, step back a little bit. And when you see somebody who's aggressive or who's popping off at the mouth, instead of you reacting, because whose behavior can you control? Your own. Instead
Right.
of you reacting, have the strength of character and the presence of mind to just take 2 or 3 seconds. Okay, this person's crazy. I feel like saying this, that, and the other, but I'm going to just calm myself down, because de-escalation means that you stay calm so the other person can see you being calm and try to turn it down a notch. We mirror oftentimes
Right.
the behavior of another person. So if I go up, you go up, I go up, and then you're in a very dangerous situation, because not only are we both escalating, but one of us might be packing. And
Right.
then, there is a decision made that will change everybody's life for the rest of their life. And it's not worth it. It's not worth it. It's not worth your life.
Unfortunately, we feel like we're living in a war zone. I mean, just the other day, 2 kids were coming from the police athletic league playing basketball, walking home. They both shot. I mean, it's like once the weather started, getting a taste of warmth around, I'm driving around through the city. I'm seeing people on basketball courts. I was happy, people outside being normal, you know what I mean? Not in the house, not on social media, just being able to see the young folks on the basketball court. But, even that can turn into like, somebody swat somebody's shot. Now they mad, they arguing, somebody go to the car. I mean, it's, it's just crazy. I don't, I, if I do something like that, I have to go in the suburbs to play basketball. You know what I mean? Outside the urban area. And
I
I'm
think
not saying,
we have to do a better job of providing safe and supervised recreation in the urban core. And
yeah,
that has been a problem pre-pandemic.
right.
I mean, in Kansas City, we had an issue on in one of the high dollar shopping centers, because teenagers were coming down there to congregate, and they're being young teenagers and being silly and foolish, but there's no place else for them to go. There's nothing for them to do. So what do you expect? Now, post-pandemic, or we're not even in post-pandemic, I think it's even more critical that we figure out, community centers, churches, and government, figure out ways to engage our young people in healthy ways where they are supervised. Because if we don't, I think we're going to be in for a tough summer.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, everybody, at least here, everybody is out. Nobody's, for the most part, hunkering down inside anymore. Just open everything up. I started seeing, certain places having intramural sports, football. They're wearing the mask, but at this point, I'm just like, just open everything up.
Yeah.
I don't see the point of saying we're not going to do this, we're not going to do that. So I mean, that's a whole nother subject, but at this point, we just need to, instruct our kids, like, go out, get some sun, get some vitamin D, which is good for your mental health. We don't talk too much about nutrition and how that plays a role in our mental health. I, for one, have tried to improve my mental health through nutrition. But definitely it plays a role, getting that sunlight, going out in spaces where there's trees, not being in the urban jungle all the time. So I don't know. I mean, what do you think? Nutrition.
Well, if you've ever had the experience of being irritable when you're hungry, I think we call it hangry, where you're hungry, you're angry, you're irritable, that is proof that how we feel is related to what we eat. So if you haven't eaten, then you start to get irritable. You start to, get kind of frowny. You get angry. You snap off on people. And so there, you can't divorce nutrition, physical fitness from mental health.
Right.
I mean, we are a unit. We're body, mind, and spirit. And so if we can feed our bodies with things that are healthy, we are more apt to think in a healthy manner. Now there's not necessarily a direct correlation, but if you give the brain what it needs to function well, it will most likely function better than if you don't give it what it needs. If you just give it sugar, if you just give it, things that lack the nutrients that our body needs to function. And certainly exercise is one of the best ways to manage anger, to manage depression. Get outside, get into nature, and really just calm down and see that you are part of a system. You're part of a human and nature system. And sometimes things take time, and nature certainly can teach us that.
Well, I just came across a video not too long ago of Monique, the actress, right? And she was talking about her mental health and what she wasn't telling anybody else what to do or what not to do. She said, but for her, she just started walking, and it on a regular basis, and it aided her in her mental health. And now, I'm not a winter guy, even though I'm born and bred in the Northeast. But now that the weather's getting warm again, you see my background back here. I like to go walking down there near the art museum. We have actually Philadelphia has the largest inner city park in America.
Wow.
So we have plenty of paths to walk, bike, jog, horseback riding, all of that. So now that the weather's breaking, I like to take out a couple of my young boys with me. They like to go walking with me.
Good.
Yeah, so definitely this aids, I know, in the mental health. People need to get out of the city, travel, those, like I said, those open spaces, fresh air, because I was having this conversation with somebody the other day. I don't know if you've ever looked into it, but where you see less greenery, you tend to see more violence. And when you see more greenery, the more dense it is, you tend to see less violence. Now, this is a non-scientific thing that I said.
Makes sense.
I said, just think about it. It's no oxygen coming from the environment. All CO2 affecting everybody. It's hot because there's no greenery. When there's greenery, it cools things off a bit. And I just think people need to travel a little bit more.
But it's also a mindset, Omar, because
definitely
that's an interesting thought, and I wonder, and I'm sure there's some research on it, or if not, there might need to be. But then I'm thinking about my hometown of Brooklyn. I was born in Brooklyn, New York, which you talk about congestion. I mean, everybody is on top of everybody, but they don't have the levels of crime that in Brooklyn, New York, as they do in other places. Now, I don't know if it's because they have a very robust mass transit system, so you can take the train and go to different parts of the city, and get out of your immediate area. And that's something that we need more in lots of cities, is ways for affordable ways for folks to get out of their comfort zone and out of their normal neighborhood and see something different. Go to the zoo, go to the park, just go visit a different part of town.
You just mentioned something like because I had this conversation with my cousin who's also from the New York borough, Brooklyn. The human being is a communicative creature, but I don't believe we were created to be on top of one another. So that creates an environment where we're just too close. We need, like down south, you have spaces between the homes, but in the Northeast, on the East Coast, we have these the projects. We have these places where we're just stacked on top of each other. And I just, I don't believe that we were created to be in that type of environment. Do you have any research on that? Or
I don't have any research on that. I think it's it's probably economics or financial, in that people, the folks who have the money, who are building these projects, are doing it to reach an economy of scale so they can make a profit.
Right.
So yeah, I don't know a lot about that. I don't have any research on that, but I remember visiting my father in Brooklyn and seeing those high rises. He lived in a high rise, but it was in a nice neighborhood. But I know in Bed-Stuy and in some of the other areas where the projects, just looked really depressing.
But I also told her, I said, a lot of people from New York I found to be very loving people. I don't, we got into this whole a discussion about spirit and this, that, and the other. She's a very spiritual person. But definitely, and I'm not saying there's no violence in New York, but it just seems as though, even the rough people from New York, hey son, what's up, son? Hey, what's up? One love, you know what I mean? New York is just, even though we're close to New York and Philadelphia, we're just two separate beasts. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Philly is just, cutthroat.
And don't you have, isn't the motto the city of brotherly love?
Man, this is Philadelphia. This is Philadelphia. It's sad. It's really sad. I mean, moms are being killed. Girls, historically, girls was kind of left out. Girls are being shot, intentionally.
What do you think is underneath? What do you think is going on? Is it drug related? Is it financial stress? Is it just ego and people just being mad and
emotionalism?
reacting?
People they don't have coping skills. Social media. A lot of people are having these social media beefs about nonsense. But at the end of the day, what they don't realize is they're fulfilling something that people want them to fulfill. You can't keep claiming racism. You can't keep claiming destruction of our community if you are the prime source of that. Because we were poor back in the 60s and the 70s. We didn't kill each other. We might have had fights and stuff like that, but we didn't kill each other at the rate that we're doing now. We had more unification, togetherness, family, community interaction. Families looked after one another, but we don't have that now. So, and with that being said, you have teens running the neighborhoods. People, you have the older generation, they're scared of them. I've heard stories, like I said, of 12, 13-year-olds committing murders, laughing. It's all fun and games. And then they blame the police. They're not doing their job, but the police can't do the job of the community.
Of the parents.
Or the parent. That's to, a lot of times the police know who killed or committed these murders, but nobody will step up and testify. Nobody will give their testimony to what they know. So they don't have a case. So we have allowed these quote unquote teenagers, young adults to take over our communities and run them like, some sort of, I don't know. And then the families, they hide them and they keep quiet. They know what they're doing, but they don't want to say nothing because that's their loved ones, until it comes knocking on their door. Because if the people in the streets know, and if the people in the streets know, they're going to bring it back to your side too. So everybody needs to take a inventory of themselves and be responsible.
Well, that gets back to your point about parenting and about parenting well and to continue to parent the teenager. Because I've seen this far too often is that when a child gets to be 15 or 16, the parents just kind of say, okay, you're almost grown, just do you. And what I have learned from personal experience as well as seeing it happen is you still have to make your teen accountable to you with a curfew, with you have the right to ask them questions: where you been, where you going, who you going with, when you coming back. I don't know those people. You still as the parent have that ability and the right and the authority and the power to manage your teenager. Now you'll get pushback. It might be difficult. It might be difficult to manage the teenager, but what happens, Omar, in many cases is that the parents let the teen go. They get into a situation with a group of people that are not doing the right thing. And I had this one young man that I'm thinking of right now. When I worked with him, and he was just a smart young man, wanted to go to barber school, got involved with the wrong people, and somebody set him up and shot him in the head, 17 years old, and I don't know if his mother let him go, but what I am saying is that we have to reduce the likelihood of our children getting in a situation where they can't manage it because it's really above their head, by asking questions and keeping tabs on them. You can look in their phone.
Especially when they still living under your roof.
Look in the phone.
Right. Especially when they still living under your roof.
So I see too many parents, and I get parental exhaustion. Especially if you're a single parent, you're just glad that they can get to school and thank you, Jesus. And because you're trying to hold everything down, but we cannot let go of our children. We've got to keep engaging them, even when they hurt our feelings, even when they do stupid stuff and they're ungrateful. We've got to continue to be the adult in the household and have them and parent until they are out of the danger zone, which for our young men of color, the danger zone, hell, is up until 30 now. It might even be 35. It used to be 25, but.
Did you see the video of the father and the son having a shootout?
No.
So a son came home and the father saw he had a firearm on, and he asked him for it. Told him to take it off, and the boy pulled the gun out on his. Now his father carries as well, so the boy took it out, started shooting at his dad. So they had an exterior camera on the outside of the house. You could see the boy come out, and the father chased him outside the house. The boy turns around, takes a couple of shots, and then the father takes a couple of shots at him. Thankfully, they both missed each other, but you can never come back in my house ever. Don't ever call me. Don't ever ask me for anything, because the cops, they arrested the boy, but he can never. He's cut off from this family. I mean,
that's a heartbreaker. That's a heartbreaker right there.
Man, listen,
to have raised a child and have them turn on you like that.
I don't know what the what he felt to do that to his father, but at the end of the day, I'm sure his father never took a shot at him. So you can never come back in my house ever. Don't come around this neighborhood. Don't let me see you. I mean, that's just me. Some people would say, "Oh, you gotta have no way," because few inches this way, I'm dead. It's over, and the rest of the family is going to be missing 2 people. You understand what I'm saying? So these are the type of things that's going on now, kids.
Where did that happen?
I don't recall if it was in Florida. I believe it was in, I want to say it was in Florida. It was somewhere down south, I believe. But needless to say.
That's a tough situation. I hadn't heard about that, but the Bible says to honor your father and mother. And it doesn't say anything about how they treated you, so you should honor them if they treated you well.
Right.
And it is up to the children to respect and honor their parents. And
Mm-hmm.
so, when you, so and let me just share that with you before I know we're not wrapping up just yet, but disrespect cannot be tolerated as a parent. Just
Absolutely.
cannot be tolerated. It goes against everything you're trying to teach your child, which is parenting is to teach and train children how to be successful adults in society, how to follow rules,
Mm-hmm.
how to take care of themselves, how to be a gainful, tax-paying individual so that you can be independent and grow up and have a great life yourself. So I want to share that and certainly get your opinion, but any kind of disrespect cannot be tolerated. And the best time to deal with that is when your child is young,
Mm-hmm.
because if you can get a handle on it when they start disrespecting, because they'll try you, children will try you, but you cannot let it go. You cannot let it pass, because what often happens is they grow up into a teenager full of themselves, and you have a situation that you still have to make sure that they know you cannot cross this line, which obviously this young man crossed the line. And that it's a heartbreaking situation, because the whole family is now fractured. It's
Right.
not the father and the son, it's the extended family as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, I agree. I had an incident with my almost 15-year-old months ago. And I think I mentioned this to you before, where he said he didn't want to do his chores. He said he didn't
Mhm.
want to do chores. I said, okay, no problem. So I said, all right, go pack your bags. You got to go. You can't stay here. And I was real calm like that. I think he thought I was kind of joking about it, but his mom was semi-supportive of it. But at the end of the day, we're building. You have responsibility. When you reach a certain age, you can't just be in the house and not be a someone who's adding to what's going on inside the house.
Yeah.
You have to contribute. And his thing is, he just wants to stay in his room, play his games. He don't
Mm-mm.
want to do chores. You can't do that here. I'm out working every single day. I'm paying all the bills. I'm bringing the food here. You can wash some dishes. You can sweep the floor. You can clean the kitty litter or whatever the case may be. And you shouldn't have any beat. You can go back to your room and do whatever you're doing, or go outside or whatever. But he felt like he didn't want to do it. He started crying. I don't want to do no chores. I said, okay, no problem. Go pack your bags. Huh? You can't stay here. You don't want to contribute. You cannot stay here. And he left for about 2 weeks. First he would call his mom and ask her, can he come home? And so she asked me, and I said, what's going to change when you come back? Oh, I'm gonna do chores. Okay, but what is going to be different than what you were doing before you left? How are you going to be more respectful? Or I'm gonna just. He didn't understand, and I wanted him to understand what it meant to have the role that he had, and what I was asking from him, or what his mom was asking from him. And I had to break it down for him. And I don't think I think he still doesn't understand completely. But
He's not going to understand completely until he has a child or son and goes through the same thing, or until he gets out there on his own and
on his
has to
own.
support himself.
So I
And
just
that's, you see, that's the thing about teenagers, is just what you're saying right here, is they think they know. They
mm-hmm,
think they know, but they don't. They really don't, because they haven't had to experience having to pay rent, gas, lights, water, all of that, and be responsible for themselves. None of us feels like going to work all the time, but you go because you have to.
exactly.
That's the part of growing up. That's part of growing up. And so what you're describing is natural consequences to a decision that you've made, which are important, and helping him understand that you are now entering a space where you need to be responsible and contribute to the household. You are no longer a child where you can just play. Okay, you're 15. You're getting into adulthood, and so things are different now, and there are different expectations.
So one of the things our friend Mr. Whalen mentioned to me was we were talking about financial literacy, and he mentioned, I had never thought about this before, is when you get your bills, show them to your children. When you get your bills, let them know, let them see what you're paying, you know, so they can understand that you are taking care of them, that you're struggling to keep the lights on and keep food and all these other things. Let them see how much money you spend on them on a consistent basis, you know, because a lot of them feel, oh, you don't do nothing for me, you don't give me no money. You know, one of the things he wanted to what do they call it, when you give them money every week, or
allowance.
He wanted an allowance, right? And I said, allowance for what? You're not doing nothing. You stay in your room all day, you don't clean your room, you don't wash clothes, and you cry about doing chores. I said, listen, do your chores straight for a week without being told. Because, you know, I always had to remind them. You know, when I grew up, my mom had the list. She had it on the board. And I knew what I had to do every single day.
Right.
And I had to do it. And I didn't question it. It wasn't a problem. I did it. These kids, they need financial incentive. They need to understand why it's being done. So, you know, when he mentioned that about the, showing the bills and things like that, and, you know, perhaps they'll have a better understanding as to why you're not here to do it, but to start to mold you, because at the end of the day, we're supposed to be creating or raising parents as well. Fathers, mothers, sisters, brothers, aunts, uncles. Our roles of parents, as you stated, it doesn't ever end.
It never ends. So let me just say something real quick right there, because that is a myth that when you get 18, I'm done, you're on your own. I've heard many parents say that. I disagree with that. As long as you are alive and your child is alive, you will be their parent. Now, you will change your parenting style. But I have a 30-year-old and a 32-year-old daughter, two daughters. I just went on a vacation with my 30-year-old daughter. Right. There were some things that I noticed, and, you know, I had to think about it. I had to keep my mouth shut and wait for the right time to say something. And actually, I just asked a question. I didn't tell her what to do, because, you know, 30-year-old don't want you to tell them what to do. I'm grown, Mom. I'm paying my own bills, which she is, and she's doing well. But you change your parenting style as your child gets older. And the parenting style for teens is different than the parenting style for a 30-year-old. But you never stop being a parent, because you will always have the benefit of more life experience. And you can see things that your child can't see. Right. And so you want to help them avoid, if they will listen, you want to help them avoid train wrecks, car wreck crashes. And I'm talking relationally, not literally. Absolutely. You can see this relationship is not good, it's not going to work out. Let me ask you a couple of questions. Have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? So we do change our parenting style as our child grows, but the parenting style of a teenager needs to be very similar to what you said. Strict rules, accountability. You need to start contributing. You need to start looking at the money, so you can see that money does not grow on trees. There's a way to manage money. And if I give you an allowance, that allowance is for you to pay for the things that you want. So let's go to the store, and instead of me buying that stuff, you buy it. Because when you feel how much it costs to buy that trinket or to buy that candy, you will start feeling the weight of being an adult.
Yeah, I've been trying to tell or impart some knowledge to my son about money and
Mm-hmm.
how it works. He's in a program. When the pandemic started, they started a program here with the local Y to train kids, and they would pay them for going through the training. And one day I asked him, I said, "Are you using this knowledge? Are you?" I'm just sitting there. I'm getting paid. Like I said, but why? If somebody's taking the time out to pay you to learn something, you should try and suck it all up and implement it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't just get the money, because the old saying, if you teach a man if you teach a man to fish, for a lifetime, he'll be able to feed himself, right?
Right.
So he getting the money, but I'm like, are you using any of that knowledge? You still trying to buy $200, $250 Jordans. For what exactly? You don't even go outside. You know what I mean? When you do go outside, it's from the house to the car, back to another house. He's not out. He's not a kid that, very rarely, every once in a blue moon, he'll go to, and I trust me, I encourage him, go outside, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But he's a kid that like to stay in his room, be on the device. And this was an area of contention between myself and his mother. But, I asked him the other day, I said, you're in ninth grade. I said, you know what you want to do yet? As you get older, you have any idea what you want to do? I said, because it's going to come like this. It's going to be over soon.
Yeah.
This year is almost over. You're going to be in 10th grade, and you're going to be not necessarily out of the house, but you're going to have a greater sense of responsibility, because your job right now is to be in school. But once school is over, now it's time to go out and prepare yourself for doing your own family, creating your own family, and doing whatever you need to do to survive. But you can't just stay in the house, play games all day. That's not going to work. That's not an option. So he didn't have an answer, but I'm keep revisiting that.
Yeah, you got to keep talking to him.
And I don't want to make it easy for him. But right now, we have to. That's our next show. Kids of divorced parents, dealing with that, because it's always, we have two different styles.
Mm-hmm. That's not unusual. For the 5 reasons why people get divorced are money,
mm-hmm.
sex,
Mm-hmm.
Household chores, discipline of children,
Mm-hmm.
and listening to neighbors and friends. No, family and friends, talking about the other person.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's not unusual to hook up with a partner, especially at the beginning. Opposites attract. And so, at the beginning, you and your significant other or wife or the mother of your son, had a lot in common, and you probably liked each other. But it's not uncommon to hook up with the opposite. That's why you are attracted to them. And they often have the opposite values and ideas of how to raise children, it's not unusual for one partner to be a saver, one to be a spender. Mm-hmm. You have one partner who is a disciplinarian. You have one partner who's much more permissive, more lenient. Mm-hmm. And so the coming together and figuring out, okay, how are we going to operate as a team is the struggle.
Yeah, those dynamics.
Such a high divorce rate, because people aren't being successful at it.
Yeah, I mean, it's sad, it's unfortunate.
Unfortunate.
Same time, it's a reality.
Yeah.
And we have to be able to navigate that with the utmost respect, and being we have to be open with one another as well, and try to work with one another, because at the end of the day, I believe we have the same goals, and that's to do the best thing for those
Right.
offspring that come from that situation,
Right.
and don't weaponize it.
Right.
A lot of times it's weaponized as a means to, unfortunately, I can never understand that mentality to weaponize your child against the other parent. But for those who've done it and done it successfully, my hats off to them. Um, uh, Hopefully we can continue this conversation.
Yeah.
Like I said, talk about children of divorcees. Any last words?
Well, I think, just be kind to yourself. Don't be too hard on yourself, and do the best that you can. There's a lot of resources out there to help you with tips and tools on parenting. I am the executive director of a nonprofit, Gateway of Hope.
Mm-hmm.
We have every Wednesday, we offer a free life coaching series on, we have three, so it rotates, but one of the life coaching series is on parenting.
Right.
And I'm an advocate of learning from, I can learn from just about anybody. If you get one nugget that you can that you can put in your toolbox, and then all the better for it. So you can go to gwhope.org and click on the life coaching series and look at the ones for parenting. But don't give up on your kids. Don't give up on yourself. Most parents do the best that they can. But if you're struggling with your teenager and you need some additional resources, don't be afraid to reach out. Google resource. There are plenty of resources out there.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would just encourage people to reach out and just get some knowledge. Get some knowledge, get some additional knowledge so that you can be even better with your teenager, because getting your sons and daughters through the teenage years is probably the most difficult period because of their arrogance and their back talk and the laziness, and just not every teen is like that, but a lot of teens are like that. And getting them to adulthood, to 24, 25 years old. That is the goal. Getting them alive, to stay alive until 25.
Yeah, that's real sad. And this is a phenomenon mostly in the West, Western society.
We give them too much. Yeah. Our kids have too much.
Yep. So once again, we appreciate Ms. Moore for blessing us with her time. We hope to see her again soon. As we continue our series on parenting. If you have any questions for her, we'll post her contact information below. Please feel free to send any questions you may have for her, and we'll forward them to her. Also, you can contact her on her social media. She's on Instagram. I'll post that. Facebook. I don't know if you want anybody contacting you on Facebook, but we'll post your organization below.
It's Gateway of Hope. That's the best way to get a hold of me.
Right. And until next time, hopefully we'll see you guys on another episode of the Philly Old Head Review.
Well, keep hope alive, and Omar, thank you for putting some good out into the world. God bless you for that.
Thank you. Appreciate the time.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.